Here's what happens when you mix patience, color layering, and just a handful of pens. This is my ballpoint pen portrait of Robert Downey Jr. And today, I will take you through my entire process from start to finish. So with that said, let's jump right in. Okay, step number one, grades. So, I always begin by dividing both my reference image and my drawing paper into carefully measured grade, usually a 1 inch or half-inch spacing, depending on how detailed the portrait will be. The step is crucial for accuracy. It transforms a daunting full-face composition into bite-sized zones that are easier to focus on. Think of it like putting together a puzzle, one square at a time. I label each row with numbers and each column with letters, creating coordinates like B3 or C4. This helps me pinpoint exactly where facial features should go and make it easier to cross-check proportions without constantly guessing or eyeballing. The grid also keeps my hand steady, right? Especially when layering color. Without it, I could easily shift a shadow or misplace a curve, throwing off the symmetry of the entire face. It's like having a blueprint that keeps me anchored throughout the process, especially when I step away and come back to continue later. While some artists find grids restrictive, I see them as a foundation for freedom. Once the grid is in place, I am free to play with color, texture, and emotion without worrying that something is off. It's all about building confidence in the early stages so the creative choices can flow naturally later. With this in mind, check out how I use the grid to draw the rest of the outline. Okay, step 2, the eyes, which is honestly my favorite part. I always start with the eyes. Why? Because they serve as the window of the portrait. If the eyes feels alive, everything else falls into place. I zoom into the eye grid squares first and treat them with the most precision. I use a layered mix of yellow, dark brown, blue, and black pens for the pupils and irises. The blue helps reflect light and gives the eye a moist, glassy effect, like they are really looking at you. For the whites of the eyes, I'll be honest, I play safe and use a yellow, right? Very lightly. And then light blue, I shade with light blues, right, to provide an even soft texture. Now, the colors bring subtle shadows and reflections to the sclera, making it feel rounded and alive. Another thing worth mentioning is the skin around the eye, right? The skin around the eye is one of the most expressive and delicate areas of the face. It's thin, layered, and constantly moving. So capturing it requires subtle color work and a strong understanding of how light, right, and blood flow affect tone. In this drawing, I started by identifying the warmest and coolest zones around the eye. I used reddish browns and yellows as well as blues for the under eye area to show natural shadows and a bit of puffiness. These shades, right, mimic the thinness of the skin where blood vessels suddenly show through. Notice how it's not just, dark for the sake of the contrast. It's layered, which creates a believable depth. For the eyelashes are all about rhythm and restraint. I didn't want to just draw a bunch of straight black lines that flattens the eyes and make it feel, fake. Instead, I followed the natural curve of the lashes, letting each stroke flick upward at a straight angle and vary in strength. I then repeated similar process from the other eye, which is finally bringing the portrait alive. Now, let's talk about around the nose. Okay, now over here, I'm working on the cheek and the side of the face. And you will notice I'm layering in colors that might seem strange at first, like blue, pink, yellow, and orange. But this is intentional. Real skin is full of undertones that shift depending on light, depth, and blood flow. I start soft, right? Layering it bit by bit, letting colors blend naturally. My goal isn't to match a single skin tone, but to build a realistic one by combining warmth and coolness, light and shadow. Notice how I follow the curve of this cheek with each stroke. This helps build the illusion of form and makes the face feel alive, not flat. No harsh lines, just soft transitions. That's how I make colored pens behave like paint. Next, let's cover the lower face. Right here, I'm layering with different colors to bring the lower face to life. I start with orange and yellow to warm up the highlights and give the skin a sunlit glow. Brown helps me build structure and deepen, shadows without going too harsh. Then I blend in pink to add that realistic flash under the skin, especially around the cheeks and nose. I use black sparingly only to reinforce the darkest shadows and features. Also, the mustache under the nose. And finally, blue cools down the undertones and balances the warmth for more realistic depth. Next step, the lips. I'll be honest, shading the lips was really tricky. I start with the blue pen to softly mark in some cooler shadows under the mustache and on the bottom lip. This helps, give it a realistic 3D shape. Then I switch to pink to build warmth into the lips. I layer it in the center and blend outward so that the lips, look soft and neutral, not flat. I keep adding depth with a brown pen, especially around the corners, of the mouth and under the lower lip to separate it from the beard. This helps define the shape without using harsh outlines. I then use orange to warm up the transitions and create a lifelike skin tone around the lips, and then go back in with pink and orange on the lips themselves to build subtle highlights and undertones. Finally, I reinforce some of the darker shadow and beard textures to blend the lips seamlessly into the face. Now for the final step, the hair. I'm working into the jawline and hair. I start with the black pen to shape the edges of the beard and sideburn. Just short strokes to give it texture without overpowering the skin underneath. Next, I move to the brown pen, building the hair in layers, especially around the edges where the roots meet the skin. These strokes follow the hair's neutral direction, which helps give it flow and realism. Remember, it is highly important to follow the direction when you are drawing the hair. Now, I add the orange pen to bring warmth into the lighter hair strands. This balances out the cooler tones and keeps it from looking too flat. Then I go in with the yellow pen, for highlights, mostly around the top of the head and spots catching the most light. Then with the pink pen, I punch in a few midtones and shadows within the lighter areas. It helps tone down the yellow and makes the highlights feel more blended. Finally, I reinforce the shape and volume of the hair using deeper layers of brown and black again, sketching the flow upward and outward to make the hair feel like it has movement and weight. And there you have it, my drawing process of Robert Downey Jr. This piece took a lot of layering, blending and trusting the process. From the skin to the hair, it's all about building depth one stroke at a time. Thanks for watching me bring this to life. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more. I've got more portraits, tips and techniques coming your way. See you in the next one.